I noticed this sound in the air, this music. It was so beautiful. You could almost touch it if you wanted. And wow, this is pretty cool. Feels good. And in the distance, I saw this beautiful tree, and I walked towards it and saw this beautiful golden mango on top of the tree. And since I grew up in the Amazon eating mangoes from trees, that mango is so mine. So you have an owner now. But as I was just about to climb the tree, I realized, you know what? I'm an adult. So I'm gonna do the adult thing. I'm just gonna wait for the mango to fall because that's what mangoes do when they're ripe, they fall. And I kind of gauged where it will come down, and I sat there and I waited. And here comes another adventure inside the adventure.
My guest today is Joseph Banks, who had a near death experience as a result of being exposed to hazardous fumes. And since then, he has learned how to astral travel and to work with his dreams. And he's going to talk about how you can learn how to do what he does. So, Joseph, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And thanks so much for making this happen.
I'm so happy because we got to meet in person at the IANS, the International Association for Near Death Studies conference, a couple of months ago. And so we had the pleasure of meeting and having a couple of conversations. And you really do have a fabulous story. And you were a presenter and a guest speaker at the IANS conference. So I'm really excited to get a chance to ask you all the questions I couldn't ask you while you were up on stage.
Oh, thank you. It was such a pleasure and a great opportunity to be there. It was my first time in Phoenix, and I think it was just absolutely amazing. Like I said, I rode my motorcycle from Portland to Phoenix in the summer. So people say don't do that, but I did it anyways because it's really fun. And it was amazing. 4 days of meeting awesome people, seeing that, life and great things, sometimes hiding in small places. And the after effects are still being felt here. So,
Oh, and that's a great commercial. I know next year in 2025, the IANS conference will be held in Chicago. So people who are interested in it, maybe it's in your neck of the woods next year. Well, why don't you tell us what your life was like before you had this near-death experience?
well, it's one of those moments that divide, it's a water divider in one's life. So this happened in 2011, and I had moved from Brazil to the States in 2009 and lived pretty much all over the country. And in 2011 in Tennessee, I had this experience. And well, I was an immigrant. I still am in blue collar, so I was like living day to day. Never had any religious aspirations or anything like it. I grew up Catholic down in Brazil because everybody is. And but since that day, things did change for me. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy transformation, like painful to what led me to that moment of at certain points. But life changed completely. Uh,
It's funny that you say that. I mean, it seems to be the consensus of everybody I talk to. And the thing I want to point out is that when people have a dream, they don't go and change everything about their lives. These experiences are more real than reality that we're in. It's what a lot of people say of how it feels to them. So it makes sense that you have this transformative experience that changes everything. So you were 33 years old. Why don't you tell us how you encountered these hazardous fumes that caused your near death experience?
so what led me to that moment of reconciliation was the fact that I was failing as a human being because death is the ultimate failure in most points of view. If every movie out there If you died, that's it. Nobody wants you to do that, and that's a big mistake. It's a no, don't go there. And inside the fuel tank, I died. And like I said, there was this voice challenging me that came because to be inside of an airplane fuel tank, you go through a lot of training. But the training basically teaches you, don't be that guy. And I was suddenly that guy. I was the guy that was making a mistake and throwing everybody off. And oh my, that's a major problem. And that voice, you're that guy now. What are you gonna do about it? And I don't want to be that guy. And I forced myself to wake up. And I woke up and I tried to get out and I passed out again. And the voice came back and playfully challenged me again. You still that guy. What are you gonna do now? I don't want to be that guy. So I woke up again and I got out of the tank. And I never went back inside, but I passed out a third time. This time I was at home. And this time I didn't come back. I only came back because someone gracefully told me to. So this is where the adventure really begins. This is not hard, but it doesn't fit the idea or the notion what a near-death experience it really is. So this is what happened really. I showed up in this place and I was in a little bus and I looked around like, whoa, I don't remember getting here. And the bus stopped and the door opened and everybody stepped out and I think I better go now. So I stepped out and immediately saw this beautiful building that looked like a theater that I like very much from my hometown. But there was something different about it. Uh, I walked into that building and there was majestic as I remembered it, but the difference was that there was no roof, there no ceiling. There was just a big tree, and it was a beautiful, bright, sunny day. And my very technical mind was telling me there's something wrong here. This is not right. But it was so nice and beautiful that I like, wow, like so just maybe they're working on some renovation. So that's the mind trying to cognize everything that you're looking at. And then as I look down, I see my great aunt, and she passed away in 2006. And when I saw her, I realized I think I died because that's the stuff that happens when you die. I heard that before in a movie or something. And then I smiled at her and she smiled back. We didn't talk at that moment, but I had a moment that I accepted that death. Like I don't know how this happened really, but I think I died. And I tried to backtrack my thoughts and I think it was the fuel tank. It really got me. And I just shrugged my shoulders and, oh, okay. That was that how simple I accepted it. And then I walked out of the building and I noticed this sound in the air, this music. It was so beautiful. You could almost touch it if you wanted. And wow, this is pretty cool. Feels good. And in the distance, I saw this beautiful tree and I walked towards it and saw this beautiful golden mango on top of the tree. And since I grew up in the Amazon eating mangoes from trees, so said that's mine. That mango is so mine. So you have an owner now. But as I was just about to climb the tree, I realized, you know what? I'm an adult. So I'm gonna do the adult thing. I'm just gonna wait for the mango to fall because that's what mangoes do when they're ripe, they fall. And I kind of gauged where it will come down, and I sat there and I waited. And here comes another adventure inside the adventure. This man was looking at me and at some distance and smiling. And I smiled back at him and looked at the mango, and I noticed people coming and going in all sorts of directions. The guy was still there looking at me and smiling. And After a long time, after a really long time, I looked at the mango and you stay there. I'll be right back. And I stood up and walked towards the man, and he never stopped looking at me. Uh, Finally, I asked him, "Hey, can I stay here?" And still smiling, he said, "You gotta go back now." And this is another moment that I was trying to find people that said yes without thinking. Um, and I did find someone, most people at that moment try to negotiate. No, wait a minute, let's talk about it for a second. And I said yes because there was something in his eyes. They were telling me that it's okay. This is how things will go. So there was so much in his eyes that today I don't really fully understand. And then I said yes. And he reached out and touched me in the chest, and I felt this jolt of energy, this like electricity. And I woke up in my bedroom. So I
How
lost
did
a
you
day.
get in your bedroom? So you were in the hold on
So
a second.
I left the fuel tank at work, and I was like
Okay.
shaking and all. And I said, guys, I'm not going back inside. And that was the end of the shift. So I I just packed up and went home. It was a long shift, a 12-hour day in the summer in Tennessee. It's not easy. And then I went straight to bed and I never woke up. And I woke up a day later, pretty much.
So you lost an entire
Yeah.
day. Okay. So I know time is a little different on the other side. Could you put into human time how long it felt like you were on the other side?
I can't really say it because I sat by that tree for so long.
Like when you say you sat by the tree for so long, and we're talking about hours, or it was be
Yeah,
like days or weeks?
because there was no sun, there was no reference.
Oh, to go up and down and
Yeah,
remind you of
the light,
day
there
and
was a
night.
sunset or a sunrise, but with no sun. And I just sat there, which was really cool actually. Um, but there was no time. But this man never took his eyes off of me, and he was there for also a long time. So I don't know. I know that I lost a day. When I woke up, everybody was looking for me. And this is a tough part because I was by myself and with roommates, and they all had normal lives, and I was the only one that was odd. So they thought I was out at work, and people at work was looking for me. My phone was ringing right next to me, and I didn't hear anything. I was married back in the day, but my wife then was living in Vermont, and I was in Tennessee. And she was like, "Yeah, this is not normal." And she was calling, everybody was calling. And then when I woke up, all these memories, they kind of disappeared. Poof. And I was in a panic mode, trying to call everybody, say that, yeah, I slept. And people, you slept for a whole day? That's impossible. And I don't know, I was tired and I don't know what happened. So, and this is when the fun really started.
So, can I ask you a couple of questions about your near death experience?
Sure.
Okay. So, the first thing that you heard was a voice. Do you have any idea who that voice was that was telling you, get out, to don't
Mm,
be that guy?
yeah, no, at, even to this date, I don't really know. But it was playful. It was challenging me in a good way and warm. So no, there was no other feelings other than being playful and warm.
Okay.
It's the voice that even in those moments of despair, kind of take a little bit of the weight on your back just by sounding the way it sounds.
That's nice.
Yeah. And I learned when I'm diving, because after all this experience, I actually became a free diver. And you take a long, deep breath, and then you go down. And as the pressure is squeezing you and you go into the depth with darkness and cold, the best thing to remain calm is to speak to yourself in your mind in a very soothing way. Say, it's okay. There's a way of talking to yourself.
Almost like it sounds like nurturing.
Yes, yes, you are. It's okay. And one, and two, and three, and you going down. The pressure is squeezing you every way. Can your lungs are squeezing to the size of this thing here, and it's cold and dark, but it's okay. So this is another mind exercise in these moments of despair. It's okay.
Joseph, I love that you just shared that because one of the things that I really love about doing these interviews is that most people watching are probably not going to have an experience like yours, but you just shared something really important that we can nurture our own selves so we can self soothe. And when we do that, it helps us
It
get
helps.
over a point of anxiety, a point of fear, a point of discomfort. And I've never quite heard anybody say something like that before.
Well, this is a very particular experience, free diving, and I only realized that because of the experience. We were diving in a really dark and cold lake, and at between 5 and 10 meters, something happened to my body, and I panicked. And you can really panic in depth. And then I came back, my body's like, what happened? And I said, I don't know. I was afraid. Never happened before. And then the second one went down, and he came back like almost immediately. And then we're like, what happened now? It's the same thing that happened to you. I panicked. And let's figure it out now. And it was the darkness. It was the fear of this unknown thing. And there was something also on top of it, which was with every stroke, with every pedal, the big long fins, with every stroke, the light would dim and the temperature would drop considerably. And we realized this is just fear, like something totally irrational that the body is experiencing.
Hmm.
So when I realized that, I went through the same experience, but telling myself it's okay. One, counting my strokes, one and two, and it's okay. And three, the darkness was there. The cold was there, but I was able to do my depth, my 25, 30 meters deep, and come back and experience the same thing up, but without being afraid.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. All right, I'm going to go back to when you were on the other side and you were on a bus, which is curious. Most people take the tunnel, but you decided to take the bus. So, you've had time to think about this? This happened several years ago. What do you think the bus was?
So I had other experiences that I was inside of a bus or something. And I read in many different accounts from the past that there is always a way of ferrying souls to the other side. So it's either a boat or something, a sort of a vessel. And in this day and age, for me, that I grew up taking public transportation everywhere, it came in the form of a bus. So I was in a ferry with souls to the other side. And I've been there many times, actually, all these nightly adventures.
Which we are going to definitely get into in a few
Yes.
minutes.
And I'm so comfortable. And I even made friends. So later we can talk about it.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I think that this is fascinating because there are a lot of people who have actually made a career out of studying near death experiences. And one thing that I've taken away from those studies is that people will have an experience that is dependent on their belief system and also on their culture. And so you have a little bit different culture than most of the people that I have interviewed on this channel. I think it's fascinating that based on your upbringing, you wind up on a bus and not a speed tunnel. So that was interesting. And then you also mentioned that you saw your great aunt. So can you describe what she looked like? Did she look like you and I do right now? Was she a light? What was she?
Well, she was doing the same thing she always did. She was older, of course, and she always liked to read the newspaper. So she was sitting in a chair in this theater, and this is one of my big memories that I hold inside from her, is that she was always curious about the world, and the way that she used to exercise that curiosity was through reading the newspaper. And when I saw that, and I knew that she had passed away a long time ago, it's like, yeah, this is happening to me now. And she was just like a nice old Portuguese lady, 5'2", like super white hair, and she was the glue of the family, really strict Portuguese teacher. So I grew up speaking impeccable Portuguese because there were consequences. But it was a nice childhood, even though it wasn't a common upbringing. I never had a common childhood.
Well, this is a perfect segue into one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. You said that you didn't communicate with her, and you just told everybody that your first language is Portuguese and you had impeccable Portuguese. And then you have the experience. Inside the experience, you're sitting there, you're waiting for the mango to drop, and then you see that man who's staring at you. And ultimately, he communicates to you and tells you that you must go back. What language did he use to communicate with you?
English. It
He
was
did. Were
plain
you
English.
surprised?
Yes. Not really. Not really,
Okay.
because, at this point in my life, I'm kind of moving away from, in this experience, moving away from language. I feel like I speak all the languages in these experiences. As long as you maintain communication, it doesn't really matter what language you're speaking.
Well, so many times these communications on the other side are telepathic anyway, but you
Anyways,
still have to
yes,
understand the words that are being said.
yes,
Whether they're out loud or in your mind, you would have a
yeah,
language that you would be hearing. So that's interesting that they were in English. So do you know who the man was?
yes.
You do? Who was
So
it?
it happens that, of course, I had to research that. I'm so curious. That's the beauty of these experiences, because it always finds something. And if you're listening to this right now, please always stay curious. Never let any of that stuff go without asking a question. So I'm so curious, and I had to discover everything I had to discover about the grotto. And there was a restaurant. I was living in Snohomish, in Washington back in the day, and there was a restaurant called the Grotto there. No, it's not it. It's not a restaurant. But there was this place in Portland, Oregon called the Grotto, the National Sanctuary of the Sorrowful Mother. And then wow, this is it. I have to go to this place. Okay, let's pause the story there. Now I have to tell another story. In the beginning, when I was feeling the paralysis and dark figures walking around the bedroom, I thought I was being abducted by aliens. And I was like really scared. So much that I was afraid of going to bed at night. And until I finally figured out, being tired of that, saying a no, of the paralysis wouldn't leave me alone. But I made friends, and there was in Washington here, there was this group. They would talk about aliens and paranormal stuff, and I became friends with them. One day, we were having pizza, after discussing some stuff, and said goodbye. And then I was driving home, and I remember thinking, I'm not feeling well, and I was really drowsy behind the wheel, so much that I was kind of nodding off. And this is not normal. And I have to go home now. And I made it home. And this is like a last second in the movies when the lights go out. I opened my bedroom door and then I went into the bedroom and I face planted on the bed. And as soon as I hit the bed, I was floating up in the air. And oh, this is really happening. And I remember, don't react, don't panic, it's okay. And as soon as I was up in the air, I sat cross-legged in the air like a yogi, and there was this swoosh, and I was elsewhere. And it was at night when I got to my bedroom, and this place was a beautiful garden and trees everywhere, bright sunny daylight. And this is not my bedroom anymore. And I looked around and there was this little hut with four sticks and drapes floating with the wind. And the impression came as being a classroom. And I look around and here comes the man that asked me, "You gotta go back now." And we said hello, and he gave me a book. And I remember reading that book twice out loud from cover to cover, thinking that I would remember something. And in the end, I returned the book. We talked a little bit more and said goodbye. So I was now floating down in my bedroom, and these five beings came to talk to me, and they were all happy. And I'm happy too. And I looking at them and they're so cute. But they all look the same, but they were completely different. There were four males and one female. Her name was something like Paola Ola, and the other guy's name is I just could not pronounce. And I tried the first time and second time, and in the end they were just pointing at me and laughing, and I was laughing too because it was funny. And one of them said something that kind of I dismissed as, "Oh, that's funny." But later I thought, well, this is something interesting, really. One of them said, "In the future, people will use your name for protection." And I thought, well, that's cool. And I dismissed it. And then they all floated up, and I tried to follow them, but I felt this pull from my middle, and I fell into my body. And then I woke up, and I can't remember anything that I read in the book, but well, I made some friends, and I met that guy again, so that's okay. It's a good day. Okay, let's pause there. Now back to the grotto. After 2 years, it took me that long to go from Washington to Oregon to visit the grotto, but I did. One day I just got on the road early in the morning and I came to Portland, Oregon, and finally I'm at the grotto. I had never been there before. And okay, God, I'm here. I'm ready for the message. There was no message. The grotto is a beautiful place. And in some point I forgot why I was there. There is a place in the upper garden called Meditation Chapel. And I was looking down through the mirror and I saw the airport. And I thought, well, I could move here. I always work with airplanes, so that's livelihood for me. But I was so broke and recently divorced, and that was impossible. Like there's no way I can move here. And I just walked out of that beautiful place and the meditation chapel, and I started to walk around the garden. And it was Portland, November, so it's getting cold. And then I saw it. And then I saw the four sticks in the roof with the drapes that I had seen in that vision. I was eating pizza with the guys in Washington. And I saw it and it was, wow, I've been here before. But not in my body. I came that night. And inside of that little hut, there is an image of the crucified Christ. And that was a man. That was a man that told me to come back. The man that gave me a book to read, that I read it twice. And that was Jesus Christ. And like, wow, I would never guess that one. He never said his name or anything like it. It was just a simple man, like being so kind to another one. Uh, and then, wow, thank you. And as if for a miracle, a few years later, it took me 7 years, but I moved to Portland maybe because of that. And the cool story is that I was so worried about money back in the day because of divorce and everything else. And I ended up moving here with all expenses paid in the company. So I didn't spend a dime. And it was such a beautiful blessing and a gift. So this is the type of stuff that happens. Um, and I always follow my dreams. There's always something beautiful there. And I can always learn from it. I see people coming and going to my life, and I see things that happen really. I see that it's compassion that moves us forward in a way, and fear is the thing that holds us back.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. That was very interesting. You are not the first person to tell me that the person that told you had to go back was Jesus. he seems to be the he seems to be like the doubter, like, or the he seems to be the wet blanket on the experience of staying on the other side more often than not. Like everybody has to go back. You have more to do. That's a really interesting way that you were shown that as a confirmation years later. So you somehow were introduced to what I'm going to call astral travel. Is that an accurate term to use for what you do?
Um, yeah, so we don't have words for that. Uh,
Right.
we just like beginning to put names to this experience that is so different. I know the yogis used to do something. The yoga philosophy is so complex, and they have names for everything, and we don't really. So yeah, astral projection, astral travel, it's in
Well,
the
will you explain to
ballpark.
everybody what it is? Because there are a lot of people probably listening who really don't understand what that means.
Yeah, it started after the sleep paralysis. Um, I
Well, maybe you have to
started,
back up and talk about sleep paralysis because that's not a normal experience for everybody either.
yeah, it's when sleep paralysis, it's when your mind's awake but your body's still asleep, and that's pretty much the feeling. But there is more to it. I know I started to test it so I was being paralyzed almost every night, and it was really bad. So I had to do something about it. I tried to seek doctor's help or something, but it was just of no use. And then I realized I have to do this on my own. So one night, I felt the paralysis coming, and I was so fed up and angry that with one solid no, but that no was full of emotions. I kind of gathered all these fleeting emotions and I kind of consolidated in one single no. And then I felt the paralysis stopping and turning away and leaving. And I finally could control it. So it was pretty much emotional energy. And it's like anger. You're angry, but there's an object for that anger. And you suddenly remove the object and stays with the energy. And it's not anger anymore because you're not angry at something. You just hold that energy of transformation. And I said no. And wow,
Well,
I can,
that's pretty powerful, but do you also think that no also contained within it a free will that can't be violated?
yes. So that was but then there's more to it. You gotta just go through since I was learning something on my own, I had to try different things. There's nobody to tell you anything. So when you learn stuff on your own, you make mistakes and you learn from your own experience of being uncomfortable. And this is what was happening. I was learning as I was going. So I had to deal with these things that were happening, and there's no right and wrong. There is only the experience. And I realized there were states as I'm relaxing at night. And this is funny because it happens to everybody. I realized there were like three states before I would be out of my body. And usually people just get stuck in the first one. So as you're relaxing, the body prepares to sleep and you feel like itching. Something itches and then you itch and then you lost it. But if you manage to hold and do not and not react, there is a jerking. You know, all of a sudden, uh, your arm or your leg just bloof without wanting, you know, without anything. So that's the jerking. And if you react to that jerking, that's it. You stay behind. But if you manage not to react to the itching, to the jerking, here comes a very interesting one, the vibration. Now your body starts to vibrate. You know, there's a moment where the conscious control is passed on to an automatic control. It's called atonia, where your muscles start to relax and they don't respond to voluntary impulses anymore. So this is a very hard to get to state, but with practice, anything is possible. So when you release the controls, when you release the most important one is the breath control. Release your breath to your body because we're spiritual beings in a human body. That's the usual saying, but nobody knows how to. Because I'm a mechanic, I see things very mechanic, in a very mechanic way, and I understand automatic control and manual control. So, and be okay when an automatic kicks in, and you will be okay. So there is a swallowing, and there is a breath that becomes shallower, and it's all okay. You know, in that's the diving thing as you go into the depth, the darkness and the cold, and that's where people lose it because we're so afraid of everything. You know, afraid to lose control. And this is the point. You don't lose it, you just surrender into your body. This beautiful being that takes you from A to B. And it was for me a big challenge. But then I learned it, and then it was an adventure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, for people who want to try to figure out how to astral travel, so you just talked us through how to let go of the physical parts of the body, but what do you do with your mind while your body is going through all of
Um,
those itching and the jerking and the vibrating?
so now I'm yogi, so I really like yoga. So in my mind, I'm sitting cross-legged somewhere. My body is relaxing. I'm in bed and it's dark. Either I'm sitting cross-legged in my mind and I'm feeling everything and saying it's okay, or
Oh, interesting. So you're bringing in the training that you had for your diving at the same time, the
yeah,
nurturing we talked about earlier.
yep. That's it's something that you can take anywhere. You know, in every situation, you can remain calm and do whatever you gotta do to remain calm. And I think my buddies at work say that happy place. You know that your body is relaxing, but you're in that happy place. Whatever it is to you, be in that happy place.
So do you think that astral travel is something that every person is capable of doing?
Oh yes, absolutely. We all heard that, I'm gonna repeat myself. You're a spiritual being having a physical experience. Yes, you're deeply connected to this body. This is my body, and I love it. But sometimes I leave it behind. And in some point, I will leave it behind for sure. And I'll be really thankful for everything that we've been through, all the crazy motorcycle rides, all the, jumping off of airplanes and hugging my daughters and my grandbaby and living a life. But it's okay to explore other things as well. So you just expand your breadth of experiences in this life. And in the end, hopefully find freedom, freedom from cycles, freedom from all sorts of bondages, and being one with God, whatever you want to call it. But knowing that you lived everything to the fullest of your capabilities, you know, but it's okay not to. And that's the beauty of coming back. We talked about reincarnation at the conference, and for me, it's a reality. I saw myself having so many different lives, and including finding one in England where I taught classes and I wrote books and I talked about God and I taught things about God. And that was me, not this guy here, but the soul
Your higher
inside.
self, right?
Yes, this beautiful being of light that is going through experience to experience. And that was me.
So, what do you think is the biggest benefit that you get from astral traveling at nighttime?
I think it's always learning. I can always learn something because when I started to astral travel, there were other beings with me. So I wasn't alone. And I wasn't being taken in the beginning to see something or to help someone, to learn something. And this is not easy, but it was because I wasn't afraid. I think my mantra in the beginning is nothing's gonna happen to me. Nothing's gonna happen to me. As I was going through those relaxing stages in my happy place, I would say, nothing's gonna happen to me. Never did. And no fear of drowning, no fear of anything. And in the end, nothing truly really dies. So what are you afraid of? And you can open up so much. And by opening up, you grow. There's a growth that happens that is really hard to explain because some things are so personal. Um, how much are willing to grow? Um, and some I know this is good enough for me now. It's okay. No, I want to see the end. I want to see the beginning. It's okay. We can do that too. Um, and
Wow.
we make friends. So this is back to the bus. So I would ride this bus every time and any opportunity I could. And I met this guy, and he told me his name and the company that he used to work for when he was alive. And then I said to him, I hope you had fun there. So when I woke up, a lot of stuff happened. And when I woke up, I researched that name, and it was very specific. And I found the guy, and he's still alive. And but we're friends now. So I thought about saying hello, but I wouldn't know what to say. It's like I met you when you're dead, but we're
So, do you
friends.
think
So
he was dead, or do you think maybe he was just astral traveling like you were?
so that's the tricky thing about time. I don't know. I'm gonna say that he was astral traveling too, but he was dead. So that's the thing. And when you astral travel, are you alive? Are you dead? If nothing truly dies, so w- and it's complicated for our mind to understand that.
Yeah.
What we can understand is compassion. It's being friendly. It's listening. I think we can listen to each other and we can share things. Hopefully, we will share experiences as well. Um, so that's the beauty of losing. Um, fear, not being afraid, that you can actually put yourself in these situations where you can learn from it.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think that fear, like getting rid of fear, is probably one of the goals of why
Yeah,
we come
yeah.
here.
And I
Replace.
see that so much. And you know what? It's okay. We all have our individual experiences, and we take whatever you know, I think it's the saying that God only places enough weight on you where you can take, something like that. I'm gonna paraphrase, but there is so much you can carry. And I see that in yoga exercises as well. And the mind can only take so much. And that's beautiful too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that the dreams are a big part. And when you say dreams, is that what we've already been talking about, or do you mean something different?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's because we don't have enough words there. For me, every night's an adventure.
So do you do this every night?
Some nights I just want to sleep, but some nights I don't have a choice.
What do
I
you mean you don't have a choice?
I just go, it's something that I do normally now. Um,
So how many adventures do you think you've had outside of your body where you've left your body behind and you've taken your consciousness and gone on these adventures? How many would you say if you could put a number on it?
I stopped counting.
So hundreds?
So this was, let's go 10 years, solid 10 years, like 2024 now. It started like at 2014. So 10 years of solid experience, nightly experience.
With 365 days, that's way more than
Yeah,
100.
yeah. So, but that's normal. That's again, we could talk about this for so long,
I know
really.
you've had so many crazy adventures. So I want to go back to one other thing that you mentioned earlier. You had those five beings, the one female and the four males that you felt were really playful, but they said something very interesting to you, which was that people in the future would use your name for protection.
Yeah,
Have you figured out what that's about?
you know. And I thought, well, maybe I'll be selling insurance thing
I
up to
love
my face. Yeah,
it.
I'll sell like a something insurance with my face on a billboard. And like, yeah, maybe it's for the future. And then maybe it's my daughters. I'll help them to move or whatever. Yeah, so
Maybe you're gonna start an astral travel training where everybody uses your techniques of calming themselves to help them have these
well,
experiences.
I hope they do because it's such a beautiful you're the star of your own movie and you can watch the movie every night. Um, and hopefully to find freedom in the end because I've seen it and it's so beautiful. And it was shown to me, not I didn't look for it. So this is another story. Would you like to hear this one?
I want to hear it. Go for it.
So
And,
in
and then after
2000,
you're done telling this one, we'll let everybody know how they can connect with you.
okay, so 2016, I'm sleeping. I'm having a regular dream. I know the difference. It's a regular dream. And I'm waking up and I feel my feet and it's the light is going into the bedroom and this voice comes and says to me in a very booming voice, I'll reveal myself to you in 2 years. And then I boom woke up like what? And well, I heard it and I looked at the calendar. It was September 23rd, 2016. And then wow, it will take 2 years. I'm gonna wait. So I put it on the calendar immediately. And fast forward 2 years. My life changed again completely. I was a different man. I had learned so much and lived so much. And finally, the day finally comes. And then after 2 years, I know it's gonna happen at night. And I know I'm just gonna be right before I wake up. So I prepared myself. Nothing happened. What? Wow, this is a major downer. And then I woke up and, well, maybe it's not rocket science. Maybe it's a leap year, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. It's not 100%. So, and I went to the bedroom. I mean, went to the bathroom and decided, well, 5 more minutes. It's still early. And then I went back to bed and I put my sleeping mask on and I was adjusting, getting cozy again. And finally, I go into that vibration stage immediately. And I'm just about to relax again. And I see this little dot passing along my field of vision. My eyes are closed, but I see this light going through side to side, and okay, am I really seeing this or am I imagining? And here comes this light, shines on my face, and it was in your face. I could not pretend that I wasn't seeing it. It shone so bright and then withdrew and then it was gone. And it was the shape of a golden bell made of chains. So, and my daughter actually painted this for me here. So it became a family thing. It's the shape of a golden bell made of chains. And so it's a long story, but the beauty of the bell is one of the first instruments that man ever made. It was first made of clay, but if you hit clay hard, it will break it. So it was cast in metal, and in the beginning, bell was made to used to call everybody for mass. You know, it's the word of God, and that's how it showed itself to me. There's more to it, but it's a matter for another story, another day. And then a year later, about the same date, the most amazing thing happened. Uh, It was the beginning. So I was shown now that I'm able to cognize everything that I saw, the beginning of everything. So I showed up in this place. I'm sitting like a yogi, and it's darkness everywhere. Like I'm not afraid. So I just expanded my senses to see if I could feel anything at all. And there was nothing there, completely voided of anything. And I remember this place is so vast, but there's nothing here. And suddenly this thing just showed itself in front of me like a words floating in the air, golden words shining like a snake. And like, wow, this is something now. And then it folded on itself and it became aware of itself. And at that moment, it felt joy. And then I felt it coming from it and coming out of me, which is something that I learned in the beginning, which is know what's yours and when it's not yours. When you're sensing somebody else's presence, it was coming out of me too. Like, wow, this is different. And then immediately, anybody by its will only made a copy of itself, and but not quite the same. So they were like a mirror image of each other, like two hands, like they are the perfect image, but the opposite. And then it made a second copy of itself, and it was the opposite of the mirror image. And they began to dance. So they were spinning in the air, and gravity came to be. And at that moment, love came to be. And wow, this is really interesting. But I was already shaking. I was already, no, this is too much. I'm not sure if I can take this thing. Um, and then something happened. They stopped, and this first one made a third copy of itself, but it wasn't the mirror image. It wasn't the opposite of the mirror image. It made itself again. So a perfect copy, aware, complete. And then well, I'm not sure if I can watch this thing anymore. And here comes the intense part. So the first one that was the opposite, I called it a paradox. One is, the other one is not. touched this third one, and there was light. There was this explosion and the first death. And matter came to be, and time came to be, and space, everything was just expanding. And then I thought, no, not thought, this imprint came. Life is imprinted in everything as much as death because it's there since the beginning. And as that light came and it hit me, I woke up in my bed. Um, And it took me a while to go back to normal, to actually wake up and look around, touch everything, because it was so intense. Uh,
Joseph, it sounds like it's been a really long time since your life has been normal anyway. Wow.
Yeah, and I managed to do everything else. So, and I
These
think it's because they
experiences are
say
so
it's okay.
unusual. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are watching that are like, I want to have an experience like that. So, is there a way that people can work with you? Do you teach this, or is this just something that you do on your own?
Well, it's something that I do on my own, but I think at some point, I gotta open up and share a little bit more. And if you wanna send me an email, I don't have a website yet. Maybe I'll have some soon. My email is joseph at piadomo, piadomu.org, or j.shaw, shaw.banks at gmail.com.
I will put those in the show notes for everybody. Well, I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing these experiences because I know that they're not part of the mainstream.
Yeah, they're
And I
absolutely
hope that
not.
everybody watching, and I'm curious if you're watching this, if you've been able to have your own astral travel experiences, or if you've been able to take the information that Joseph has shared today and you've been able to figure out how to have them. I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments. I think it'd be really fun to have that kind of a back and forth and see what other people are experiencing because you said it's not hard. And I kind of laughed to myself when you said that because I feel like that's relative. And I was thinking, well, it wasn't that hard. A lot more people would probably be having them. And I do not know very many people who regularly astral travel. So maybe in the future, it will be something that is more accessible to everybody.
Well, there's a learning curve. So let's say this way, I always liked motorcycles. I was 2 years old already in love with those things, but you can't really ride a motorcycle when you're 2 years old. But some kids do, but bigger motorcycles. So I started with a bicycle, and then now I have the most powerful one, and I love to ride it. So it's commitment, and there's something about if you love doing, if you love whatever you love, it's worth pursuing. So if you love astral projection, just maybe we can touch base and go from there.
Well, I think that is very empowering, and I really love that you shared that. So, I want to thank you so much for what you're doing to help wake up the collective consciousness. It's so greatly needed. And thank you for coming on and talking to us today.
Thank you, Laurie. Appreciate your opportunity.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.